Hello YouTube. Happy Sunday. How are you guys? Decided to try to actually get my Sunday live out of the way early, as opposed to me waiting. Give me a second here so I can actually see my live chat. Okay. As I was saying, happy Sunday. Hope everybody is having a very peaceful day. I know I am. Hoping everyone is calm as you can muster under these trying circumstances. Calm and is always the focus. And I know it's not always easy, but it does come in time. One day at a time, one step at a time. And we find our footing and we find our calm and we find ourselves back. And it takes a while. It takes a lot of healing. It takes a lot of deliberate effort. So that's just the kind of stuff I want to talk about today. Today I want to talk about growth, I guess. So I got these new cards that I was excited about. And I got one card and it's called the Sacred Lotus. It's a deck about like flowers and it's like really nice quotes. But anyways, this card is enlightenment. No mud, no lotus is the quote. So this is what it looks like. And as you know, like lotus flowers are considered very spiritual flowers. They're very beautiful. They're pure white and they grow in like swampy areas, like what would you call it? Yeah, swampy areas. So they grow in mud. And that's kind of been the theme of the kind of things that have been coming up with me lately. Doing a lot of reflecting on a lot of situations. Healing takes addressing past relationships that have not made it. It takes addressing, you know, and that's good or bad, the role people play in your life. And like if you would have had an option, either way things went. Like I was thinking about today, like if there hadn't been the gang stalking as an adversarial force in my life, if gang stalking had not presented itself as the adversity that I had to conquer, would I still be on the same path? Would I be in the same house, in the malls, hustling and scraping by? Like, would all of that still be happening? Or would there be some other way that I would have gotten on that path one way or the other? I think that I would have had to get off that path one way or the other. Another thing that I think about is how I handle the way I handled situations while being gang stalked, I know is a direct reflection of all the mistakes I made in the past, all the things I accidentally got myself into, all the lessons I learned from those things. And then I found myself being gang stalked and having to address those lessons that I had already learned. So, how there's so many examples. I'll talk about love spells, which I talk about here a lot because they use a lot of energy work when you're being gang stalked. So if there is a love spell that's put over you, it's an artificial situation. You think you're in love with someone, you think they're the one for you, you think they're perfect, etc., and you cannot differentiate that these feelings are not yours. You can't tell that these feelings are not necessarily your feelings. So what you end up being is a situation where you can see that a person doesn't love you or doesn't care about you. You can see that this person has a hidden agenda, but you keep like overriding it and trying to work through it, etc., until you come to like your right mind, essentially. I had already gone through that right before I got gang stalked, so I understood when things just didn't make sense for me. I understood that there were things that I was going to reject regardless. So that's one example. That's like a very specific lesson that I learned in order to go through like my stage, my situation. Other things was how to handle conflict with people, how not to engage in things, whether or not it bothers me, whether or not I haven't, like, you know, I can see what they're doing, like internally, it might cause issues for me to have to deal with within myself. Not taking things personally, things that have really, really, truly helped in like making sure that I handled all the conflict and the sabotage that was coming up against me without engaging people in nonsense. You know, just walking away from situations and how to avoid situations going off the deep end. And some people might look at stuff like that and they might be like, well, you're avoiding conflict, you're not dealing with things. But some relationships warrant you actually like giving it a reaction and trying. And other relationships are so transient, so they're just passing through. It's like a breeze blowing through your life. It's not worth putting yourself in a situation where people can quote you accurately or inaccurately. It's like, it's just not worth it. So part of what people were trying to do to me in my journey was slander me and say that I was very this or I was very that. And I went under 2 years of that abuse. And believe me, it does get to you eventually. However, during the process, it's like, I just walk away. I walk away. I can see that people have come in specifically with an agenda, and it's like, it doesn't make sense. So I've learned when to remove myself from situations, and I've learned how to remove myself gracefully. I think everybody's situation is different, but I definitely think it's something that we can all learn from. And even moving forward, it's like a lesson that I have to take with me, because there are always adjustments that I can make. Hold on. This is falling off. My light is falling off. There are always adjustments that I can make, and I can always do better. And it's something that I'm still working on, to be honest, and probably will for quite some time. So where do I want to start? You know what? I might as well start talking about my greatest lessons during gang stalking. There were a lot. I have never had to learn so many lessons in a short space of time. And just saying that you're learning a lesson, it's not even like the universe is teaching you a lesson. It's not even that. I'm learning lessons in, I'm seeing things occur around me, and it's almost like being taught, but there's no voice. It's like being in a classroom and there's no voice. Like you're just learning as you go. So I'm just gonna give the ones that were like my top 3 that were extremely critical in getting me through this nightmare without being mentally unwell, without looking like I'd gone through something horrific, which I did, and just like enduring and not losing faith and not losing hope. So 3 critical things. The first is endurance. So endurance felt like working and pushing past my breaking points and what I would call valid excuses that are not even excuses, they are reasons. So the first part of that, working or moving past my breaking points. I hit my breaking points multiple times. Not breaking, and now let me explain what a breaking point is for me. For myself personally, when I say I'm not going to do something, I would prefer to die than do it. It literally works like that for some people, and which is crazy because when I was younger, people would be like, you're so stubborn. That was like my grandmother's number one. Actually, she used to call me hardhead. That was her number one complaint with me. That was, and I just thought I never knew I was stubborn. I never knew. I just really thought I was like, people are not understanding me. It's like I try to explain myself and they cut me off, and then I don't push past that to explain further, but it's like, I'm not gonna do it. And I think because I might say it with a smile or I might seem very calm and very gentle, it's like then people are like, oh no, we can like push her into doing it, but it's like, I'm not gonna do it. So I was already very early on hunkering down to be gang stalked for like 3, 4, 5 years. And then if it went longer than that, then, you know, as I went into the second year, I was like, well, if this is what the rest of my life looks like, then that's what it's going to be. I just really didn't. At one point, it was like, because I kept getting false starts to it being done, but then I would start seeing more critical lessons that I had to learn, like when it was getting close to being done. So I thought it would have been done by last summer, and it would just incrementally lighten up. So I want to say it took almost a year to fizzle out to the point that it is right now. They kept trying to extend it. They were very determined, but up until last year, I thought it was gonna end, like finally. It just got things got a little lighter here, a little lighter there, a little lighter here, a little lighter there, and slowly but surely things like being crowded out in the mall, you know, people showing up walking my store all day. They had to make concessions as they kept losing people and losing support and losing resources and losing money. Now, if you don't know my theory about people needing to lose money in order for your gang stalking to end, that's the path to having your gang stalking really end. There are things that you can do to make their life harder. There are things you can do to relieve the pain. But the true issue at the core of it, they need to not be financed anymore. Once they're no longer financed, then it's not possible. One person cannot gang stalk you on their own. 5 people cannot do it on their own, or else they'd be arrested. They need multiple people because technically it's supposed to be one person at a time. So I have another video about that. Go through my videos. I think it's in my playlist under a section called informational resource. So check that if you want more information on what that is. And I give a whole breakdown on, I think it's called Gangstalking Math. What needs to happen in order for the gang stalking to end? So if you're new to my page, you need to like look at, or my channel. God, this is YouTube. If you're new to my channel, you can go through my playlist. I have a playlist called Informational Resources, and in there you're gonna see a ton of videos that have to do with things like enduring the pain and a very logical side of gang stalking, like what is it, what's the point, how did this probably occur with me, etc., etc. Which there's another thing that I have to maybe just do a video on, and that's going to be a very fun one because it's gonna be tips to identify your chief gang stalker, because you got to know who to report. If you don't have specific names, you're dead in the water. I don't even want to say it's hard. I want to say you're dead in the water. You need names. You need someone to follow. You need someone to investigate. You need to give them something concrete and be realistic. If they don't have something concrete, there's very little that they can do. So I know who my chief gang stalker is, just in case you are new again to my channel. I know who he is. Obviously, you'll see his face throughout my pictures, but that gives me a ton of leverage. Most people, if not almost all, most people do not know who their chief handlers are. So keep that into consideration. So let me get back to the point I was making. Last summer, for whatever reason, I was like, oh, it's gonna be done. It fizzled out here and there. It wasn't quite done. And that's when I started getting really irritated and really tired of it, because I was ready for it to be done. I was seeing signs that it was gonna be done, and it's like they kept coming back. So my fuse with it kept getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, because I was not of the mindset that this could not be done. And I was of the mindset that there's a possibility, but it's happening now. I had done a ton of work. I had put in a ton of strategy behind it. And I just felt like it was at the point. I'd made a ton of noise. I'd made a ton of reports. I'd said a ton of prayers. I have done so much, and it's been very strategic, and it's been on my own. And I've been learning and growing and all of this. And like, what the hell is going on? It's not like and I could see visibly that I'm talking about people not walking through my store all day. I'm talking about like they had to start using the people who worked at the businesses around me to gang stalk me because they couldn't get people to come all the time. That's the kind of stuff that was going on. And it's like, that's risky when you start using like public people like that and whatever, like, you know. But anyway, that was what a breaking point for me, where I lost my cool. I talk about it that summer. Like, I lost my cool. I was in the kitchen, I was praying, and I was so mad. I was like, listen, you guys got to get me out of this. This is ridiculous. And literally, I kid you not, I heard a masculine voice in my head the same way that, I don't even know. It was a little more faint. And all it said was, trust me. 2 words. Trust me. That's it. And that was it for me. I was like, first of all, let me tell you why that is significant, okay? The God, the Christian God, God the Father, in my opinion, in my spiritual experience, definitely exists, for sure. He is just not as active, and he is harder to reach. Like, to really access God, you need to be in like such a pure vibration of like love and peace and goodwill. One thought of like, you're praying and like one negative thought comes through your mind, he vanishes. He's very hard to access. Very hard. So it takes being in a vibrational state of like extreme control, where you have taken so much over your own self, your own mind, your own vibration, that you are in a state of peace regardless of what is going on. That is hard. Is it hard, or does it require a crap ton of discipline? Both. Lot of prayer, lot of meditation, good quality meditation, deep meditation, probably a little less human interaction, a lot less than normal, like staying away from people as much as possible. Like, so with myself, I always need like a lot of distance between my room and my kids' rooms. Like, it needs to feel like it's like in another part of the house type of thing, which is just down the hallway, but still. I choose house designs with like a bathroom or something in between my room and their room, just so that there's just more space. But all of that takes so much focus. So you're limiting human interaction because you need to quiet outside voices. And then when you're done quieting outside voices, you quiet your own. That means no TV. That means you must regiment what kind of information you're taking in. It must be positive at all times. And you're blocking information that's not going to help you. Things that are negative, things that are going to tell you you can't, things that are going to tell you the odds are against you. Anything you put in your mind is feeding it something. So you must begin from your environment to get stimulation that is telling you where you want to go, that is confirming to you that you can go there. I will not consume information that will tell me that gang stalking is not possible to be over. There's no way. There's planes are flying in the sky. Do you know how heavy a plane is? And it's flying in the sky. They got something that heavy to fly and carry people. So anything is possible that you put your mind to. That's the end of that conversation for me. So I don't care who else couldn't get out. I wasn't there with them to see what they were doing. In my mind, it could be done. So I'm going through all of this, and I have, to be honest with you, never heard God the Father speak like this. Mother, yes. Other energies, yes, but not that one. And it's a quality to that voice that you know. Let me give you an example. When I went to report being gang stalked, there was a gentleman there, an older officer, and he looked at me in the eyes and he said, "So you sure you being followed?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Okay, tell me about it." And I started telling him, and he started cutting me off after a couple minutes, and he had concern in his face, in his eyes. And he came from behind the counter and he held me by the shoulders and he's like, "You're a targeted individual. I'm very sorry." And he started giving me all this advice on things to do. And he kept rubbing my shoulders like this. And then he walked me to the car. He opened the door. He said, you should get a dog. You should do this. You should do that. And he closed the door. No, before he closed the door, he gave me a very warm hug. And it lasted a little while, a very warm hug. And let me tell you, men that are in touch with their emotional side, that do not express emotion in a feminine way, they express a nurturing quality in a masculine way. So they are very protective. They are very, a woman gives you advice and she will say, make sure you take care of yourself. Make sure you relax a bit. Everything to do with your emotional body. This is the advice she's going to give. Make sure you eat well, etc. A man is going to give advice like, make sure you put bolts on the doors. Make sure, try to get a dog. Do this. Get a camera that's not connected to the internet. Do that, do that, do that, do that. They'd heard about TIs before, obviously. This is the first time like a human being not on the internet said targeted individual. They know. And that's at multiple police stations, by the way. They know what's going on. But if you come in there and you're ill-equipped and you don't have proper information, like, it's, what are they gonna do? You guys are both gonna be chasing your tail, right? I'll say this much. These kind of incidents that had happened, they increased my endurance. Or I took it as like a hug from God, like my father had been turned against me. Well, to be honest, I believe that the beginning of wisdom is calling things by the right name. My father wasn't turned against me. My father was always against me, and he just needed a catalyst. It was always going to happen. Anybody that turns against you during this situation, it was always going to happen. It's like, I was gonna do it for free, but if you're gonna pay me, sign me up. Where do I sign up? This is a corrupt-hearted individual at heart. So of course, they're gonna be open to, it's like, what is the right price with people like that? So once you know people value money like that, you gotta always see yourself as a commodity. But it was like, I didn't have a husband in the situation. I didn't have a father in the situation. And it's like, I took that as a hug from God. And like I'm saying, trying to channel God is a very, 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 it's a discipline. It's a discipline. And up until then, I had done so well as far as like keeping my cool and keeping my vibration extremely high, extremely high. And I broke right when the bulk of like spiritual attacks kind of like dwindled down a little bit more. But right at that time, I want to say, hearing that voice, that pushed me forward. I felt just honored to hear that voice in general. And let me tell you, you can go through life and you can deny things exist. You can deny spirituality, you can deny God. Believe it or not, when I was 18, I was atheist. I didn't believe it. And I can only imagine how hurtful that must have been, but that had to happen along my path anyway. So I was an atheist. I was like so mad at God. I was like, there's no way a God can exist if these kind of things can happen, because I was going through a very trying time. And I was like upset. I was livid. And then eventually it's like I started seeing the presence of God in my life. But with things that were happening outside, things people could say, well, you worked hard for it or this or that. But when you go through an experience like gang stalking and you can literally like, you can see them now. They're real. This is not just like a belief system. They're around us every day, all the time. They're literally there. And I can't even explain it. The kind of things that have happened. It's like understanding languages that you don't speak. And you can't even communicate back in the language, but you know exactly what you heard someone say in another language. It's like seeing through people and seeing their soul instead of a person. I have always been friends with people that people would be shocked about. They'd be like, oh my God, you speak so well and you dress so well and da da da. I'd never think you'd be friends with that person. It's like, but I see their soul and I like it. And I see no reason why not to enjoy their presence, because I'm often in the presence of people who I don't enjoy, who don't even enjoy themselves, completely been ignoring their spiritual, emotional body their entire life, letting things fester, letting things scab over, letting things get infected, get out of control, and just not dealing with their trauma. So, being in situations like that, it's like you're gonna get to the point where you're gonna be really stringent, really, really strict about who you let stay in your life, because it is affecting your life experience, and all the work you're doing to advance yourself and attain inner peace is being undone by these chaotic people and situations. So, I don't wanna deal with it. And I don't. I stopped making excuses on why and giving people explanations and whatever. So I've grown to be known as a person who it's very hard to be close to and who will ghost people. I have a different version of that story. I am not ghosting people. I never knew them that well. One or two interactions does not mean that we know each other. You've just become too comfortable being at peace in my energy. Now you've become attached because you've become addicted. But what you have to do is find your own inner peace. I know that because of how you are, if I address it to you, or if I announce that I no longer want this interaction, you're going to scream and drag it out longer than it needs to. So the best thing to do is to slowly drift off or instantly disappear until you figure out that I no longer, and then, you know, you'll let it go, hopefully. And some people, you just have to brace for impact. They're gonna keep holding on. And you just gotta be like, okay, well, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, they'll let go. And you just kind of like compartmentalize that issue, put it in a little box, and just maybe not up on the shelf, but like at the door, outside, on the outside part of the door, and on the curb with the other garbage. And then just, you do not have to involve yourself in it, is what I'm saying. That's what I did with gang stalking. I was like, wow, this is becoming an issue for my real life, my personal life. Like, you guys are doing a lot. It has nothing to do with me. And I started insulating myself one step at a time from every issue. You are contacting me because I'm on Instagram. Well, I'll do my work, but I don't have to stay there. You are in my comment section. You are in my email. You call me. Well, I'll leave the phone off. Not even on Do Not Disturb. I'll leave it off. I will remove my energy in every possible way and close every possible door, step outside of that box, again, close it and put it by the curb. That's what I did with it. Whether or not they are still doing whatever they're doing, really, I cannot be accessed, and that includes energetically as well. We're done. It's done. It's over. I don't have to feel what's occurring over there because I'm sensitive, energetic. Like, I feel people. I have to unfeel people sometimes and just block it out for my own mental health so that I can move on, so that I can do the best for me. Leave it be where it is. For me, getting into my gang stalking journey, I know I was a very diligent, disciplined person to begin with. Always. I can endure. I can persevere. But this took me past the point of perseverance over and over again, exhausted. Exhausted of multiple different attacks at the same time, as is everybody else. You know, everybody else going through this, that's the number one thing that you have to deal with. You have to contend with your exhaustion. I learned endurance that is mind over situation. I use my brain. I use my willpower. I use my determination to say that I am no longer participating, because I couldn't wait for it to stop. It just came to a point where it's like, it's not going to stop on its own. I need to remove myself from the story. The first way I started was I stopped telling people I was being gang stalked. I stopped bringing it up in conversation. First of all, it wasn't helping. People would be like, what? It didn't help. So I started pulling away from talking about it. I started pulling away from consuming information that had too much to deal with any sort of negative storyline. So if it was anything talking about like with ominous music, talking about like the perils of gang stalking, it's like, nope, that's not the video for me. I want to listen to something that says, you're going to make it, you're almost there, keep going. That is the type of action that I want. So I was feeding my mind with that sort of information. I was allowing myself to have moments where I was like exhausted, laid out, tired, where I would be like, you know what, in order for me to make like one other move, I need a night of crying. I need, you know, a bath and to light some candles. I need this, I need that. Like it was just so much. A lot of the times there I had to develop rituals that I would use in order to pick myself up before it got to second nature. I am now at a point where I am so in control of myself that it's second nature to me to be able to, I'm having a bad day, something hasn't worked today. I'm gonna schedule it. Maybe not even tomorrow. I'm gonna try again. I'm gonna schedule it in for the time that it makes the most sense, because I realize this is an issue that it's gonna take a little bit more solving. So for example, if you find yourself in situations, I know a lot of TIs talk about having issues with landlords and stuff like that. If you find yourself in those situations, these are problems you need to make time away to take care of. Create a safe, peaceful, zen environment and look at the issue. And if it's going to take a day to resolve, then that's all you're doing for that day. And you're just determining to yourself, by the end of the day, this is going to get done, do or die. However, you're going to get through the first half of the day, realize you're wasting the day, and start taking really aggressive action towards getting it done and getting it done correctly. Because if you just wanted to get it done, you could have like rushed it in with the rest of your day. You really want to get things done correctly. You really have to be in control of your own mind, and it has to be, everything is self-directed and is not related in any way to what is going on around you. Self-mastery takes ignoring your environment. I'll give you an example. Yogis, people who meditate a lot. These are the kinds of people who can meditate in any situation. If you look at extreme meditation videos online, there are people who can meditate through like being burned, like their skin being burned and stuff like that. Like they're that deep in a meditation. Being in a meditation takes such control over your mind and such discipline, and that's where it starts. Your discipline is going to start with learning how to meditate. You need to be able to quiet that thing when you want, at will. You need to be able to take control over it. You need to be at a point with it where you can say, enough thoughts. You cannot say, let me have good thoughts, when you cannot control having no thoughts at all. It's like trying to put clean water in a sink with dirty water. And by just adding more water, you need to flush the water that's there, clean out the sink, then clog it back up, and then fill it up correctly. That's your mind. You need to be able to quiet it and filter it, and it takes a practice. So with meditating, you kind of get to the point where it took so much self-control to even get yourself into a certain state of meditation that once you're there, you're not getting up from it. Like, it doesn't matter what happened. You cannot afford to restart this. This took like 25, 30 minutes. You do not want, especially if you're on a schedule. So it's like you have to go to work, or in my case, I had to go to work. I don't have an extra 25 minutes. I'm pushing it as it is. A lot of times if I'm late, if I'm late anywhere, it's because I was meditating, because it's that important. It was way more important than, you know, opening the store in the mall. It wasn't way more important, but you know, you get what I'm saying. That's the kind of discipline that you need. When you get yourself to a point where you can meditate very well, you get to yourself to a point where it's like a fluid action for you, then you're gonna find yourself in a much easier state to quiet your mind in the chaos that is gang stalking. You find yourself in a situation that it's much easier to quiet the anxiety that you're feeling, the depression, the feelings of isolation, the feelings of being abandoned, the feelings of being betrayed, the feelings of being gaslit, the feelings of people, you know, ridiculing you, being very disrespectful to you. That's how you get through all of these emotions. Is you need to be able to first control yourself before you can start to control how you behave to like the environment around you. That's what it is. Where does the control come from? The mind. That's it. Simple. If you can control your mind, you don't get addicted to things, you quit things very easily, you master yourself, you master your responses to things, you calm yourself down when you see chaotic things happening to you. So you see yourself being gang stalked, but you can slow down enough to make a proper assessment, like, okay, let's go down my danger chart. Are they attacking my finances? Are they stealing money out of my bank? No. Are they attacking my children? No. Are they breaking into my house? Yes, but when I'm not here and they don't want to be detected. Are they gonna kill me? No. Well, they said there have been rumors that some gang stalk victims have found themselves unalived, and I think a lot of times they want to do that energetically, but I'm talking about physical danger. Once I established that there was no threat of actual physical danger, then I was like, okay, well, let's move to the second step. Am I in danger of, what am I in danger of? And then it was like, they want me to self-destruct while they manipulate changes in my life. So they're trying to get me out of business, and they're trying to take away my home and take away my relationships and my friendships. However, with very serious things like my finances and stuff like that, they need me to do that. They need me to self-destruct. Okay, perfect. So the parts about me losing my home and me putting myself in a situation where I'm not paying bills, or I didn't do this or I didn't do that, I would be responsible for that. I can control that part. That's amazing. No problem. If I can control the anxiety, then I can add a calm mind to really tackling those issues. For me, I value business relationships, I value acquaintances, but as far as like personal close friendships, it's not like, it's not even on my list of to-dos every day. It's just hasn't, never been. Maybe it's me, and that's okay. I accept myself. But yeah, so the betrayals and the stuff like that, it's like these are people that I've already seen throughout my life. I know that they were jealous, and you know, you come to a certain point in your life where you just have to accept people's jealousy as something that makes sense. And that's it. It's like, if somebody desires something that you have, something that you possess, because it might not be material, it could be a quality, it could be you know, some physical attribute. If somebody desires something that you have, it's only natural that they're going to feel some level of jealousy. Even if maybe, you know, the best case is we are always expecting people to be the best case version of themselves. And the best case version is that they would not succumb to the jealousy. But the reality and the law of averages is that they are going to succumb to it. So you have to know that everybody that betrayed you, if you look closely, you can see, you can identify ways they spoke to you, things they did, times they didn't show up for you, etc. That was very obvious indicators that they didn't maybe think that highly of you to begin with. There are other people who are going to hold on a lot longer, that probably can't be bribed as easily. Those are the people who respect you, and then those are the people who they're probably just going to gang stalk and bully. So going through this process, you just have to accept that, like, people are not going to, if they haven't already solved that issue within themselves, they're going to succumb to themselves. And I know in my situation with my dad, I saw the amount of grief and guilt on his face. People who get you caught up in, no, let me rephrase that. People who were not there for you while you were being gang stalked and who didn't believe you for whatever reason, whatever the reason might be. Maybe bad reasons, maybe good reasons, maybe they were just confused, maybe they just thought you were out of your mind or going through an episode, who knows, whatever the reason is. People who are not there for you and who don't support you only really sometimes come to figure what you've been going through when they get gang stalked themselves. And unfortunately, in my situation, people got gang stalked that went against me. I think as soon as they became a witness, then they just gang stalked those people as well. So they didn't want witnesses to exist. They don't, not didn't, they don't. They had to go outside of the normal resources of normal gang stalkers. They had to go, you know, and which gang stalkers always do. They go into the community, they go into your personal network, but they were getting very sloppy in my situation. But for the people closest to me who didn't help, and they attack your closest personal relationships first. When women are gang stalked, they attack the masculine relationships that you are closest to first. I was embarrassed of those relationships because I thought, my God, they didn't even fight for me. I had strangers fight for me. I had people that I just like I met recently in that time, and those people held on until those people were beat away from me with a stick. But the relationships closest, those ones fell right away, very early. And like I said, one of the things that really helped me through life is, and this is not just a gang stalking issue, but not putting a huge emphasis on relationships for my personal happiness. As a matter of fact, I put very little is dependent on my personal happiness. Like I wake up happy because I want to be happy because I made a decision. And I, a long time ago, went through this phase where I was like, I don't want anything attached to my happiness. Whatever I have, whatever I lose, whatever conflict, whatever. It was heavy lifting in the beginning, but eventually, you know, it's obviously paid off. And like I said, and I did all of this in the face of valid reasons people were gang stalking me. People, it wasn't, it's like I could, you know, have lost the store location to lies, to slander, to whatever. And then wake up the next day and it's like I'm already looking forward to the future. Like, what is the next thing? What do I have to conquer? What do I have to master? Where do I have to go? Because I can't worry about outside forces. I can't cry about what's already occurred. I have to keep going, keep looking ahead of me. You can't look back. It's like the story in the Bible where they talk about Lot's wife when she was looking back. I think it was the city of Jericho, and she turned into stone, and they said into a pillar of salt, and they said to her, "Do not look behind you. Keep going, and that is your job." I talk a lot about endurance here, and that's part of endurance is not having your mood, your motivation, your ambition be dependent on the circumstances around you. Just knowing that that inner strength and that resolve is going to come from a very firm decision inside of you that is not associated with anything that's happening. You make a decision, you say what you want to happen, and you move past. Which it brings me to my second point, which is manifesting. I had to learn to manifest in chaos. You learn to manifest in peaceful times. What would I describe manifestation as? I'm going to give my opinion on manifestation. I think manifestation is speaking things into existence, feeling things into existence, really. Feeling it. The speaking comes in, but first you have to feel it into existence. Know it into existence. That's what I think manifesting is, and that can be from people, places, things, your life. Doing that in peaceful times takes discipline, and it is a practice, and it is directly linked to your vibration and your spiritual practices. And it is a full-on lifestyle. It is not something that you can learn and use whenever you want. It is a lifestyle. It is a state of being, at least for me. There was a time where it's like I'm going to jump in and out, and now it's just how I live. It's just how I live. I consider it like being magical at that point. There are people for sure who do things like spell work. There are people for sure who do things like energy manipulation and all that. But when you're in a state of manifestation and you're manifesting everything around you in your reality all day, all the time, you are the magic at that point. You do not need much more. You're living in a state of creation because you're living with a creative force inside of you. at that point, it's like living with a wand, really. Um, you're just always you're just always living with a confidence that things are going your way. And things slowed down for me enough that I could see life in slow motion happening around me. It was like, how do I explain it? Okay, if something happened, I was able to connect it in time, both in the past and in the future, the past, present, and future. So if something happens to me, instead of addressing a problem in the normal way that we choose to address problems, I was looking at it like, what skills do I need to address this? And if I knew that I had these skills, I would be like, where did I get these skills from, out of curiosity? And it'd be like, oh, from that situation and that situation and that situation that I didn't learn from. And I had to bang my head to get the skill. And so I have this skill from the past and I'm going to apply it to this situation. And then I'm going to see the situation play out. And then the situation leads to another situation. I'm like, oh, that's why that last problem happened. Because even though I got through it so gracefully, so eloquently, because I already had the skills that I needed, it still had to happen for a reason. It still did something for my future. Had I neglected to learn that lesson, had I not applied the skills that I knew I already had, I would have extended a situation and made it more painful than it needed to be. The situation can be very easy to get through if you simply apply yourself. So moving forward now, with gang stalking, I had to sit back and say, okay, I have a bunch of these core skills or these soft skills to get through this. There are hard skills that I need to develop. Some of these skills I don't yet have. I need to develop the skill. I need to practice it. I need to teach myself something new. Teaching yourself something new goes from, like the tarot deck, being the fool, being the one who knows nothing, being humble enough to learn, being teachable, taking good advice, taking my own advice, because I'm super good at giving good advice, put into practice. It's like when I give people advice, I'm also giving myself advice. And that's the truth. I know that I'm giving both of us this advice because I got to work on this too. But learning new skills and then being brave enough to put the skills in practice before they're mastered, because I understand that in order to master something, you master it by doing it. You do not master it just by reading about it, just by practicing it in a safe environment where there are no variables whatsoever. There are no outside factors. There are no distractions. There are no complications. There is no need to rework it, get a plan B. This is how you learn. I watch so much videos about making bread. I learn by making the bread, making it bad, judging the hell out of it, reworking it, and judging it without feeling like a failure. Just knowing, next time, in order to address this, I need to address it at this step, and this is what I'm going to do differently, and keep trying it until I get the perfect loaf. And then when I get the perfect loaf, it's like in 100 steps, and I want to get it down to like 30 steps where it's very easy to do. So when I first started making breads and pizzas and stuff, like, it was like a whole production. I was like watching the timer, blah, 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 waking up. Now I'm like, okay, well, if I don't take the dough out of the oven, as it's rising overnight, then this is what will happen to the bread in the morning, and I can live with that. Can I live with that to sleep in? Yes. Like, these are the kind of things that I had to basically learn new survival skills and then put it into practice in a very chaotic way, because I'm slapping it together based on a lot of different factors and then refining it until it works. And that is how it's really going to play out when you put things into practice. Because as you find a solution, they find a way to dissolve it. As you say, oh, I know they're tracking me through my phone, they might want to put a GPS on your car. As you now try to get around the GPS thing, then you might have to think about other things that come up. So sometimes, every time you're being gang stalked, every time you find a way to close a door or to limit the access or any of that, they're going to find ways to open the door back. So you got to be prepared up front to rework things. But manifestation was one of the things where I got to practice it in the comfort of my own home, the safety of not being bothered. I got to master it. And then gang stalking was the opportunity to put it into use. And at first, little wonky. Actually, no, I'm not lying. It was really good from day one. I'm not gonna lie. That is not, please, that is not from my ego. I just don't want to lie. It wasn't wonky. I had mastered it before I got there. I even think in a way I manifested being gang stalked. Because being gang stalked is directly tied to my future. There are a lot of things that I derived, and I hope I didn't pray that there was some year that I wanted to achieve this by, because maybe the time requirement is what caused me to go through gang stalking to get there. I don't know. But I do know that, God has a plan for your life. Like, your life is set in stone the way that it's gonna go. And, the way the spirit world works is either you're gonna do it their way or you're gonna do it the hard way. Like, you're either gonna accept that you need to do it or you're gonna get beaten down. I accept everything the universe wants because I do not want to be beaten down. I have seen other people beaten down for not listening, for not taking life seriously. I would like to skip that step in getting on the path that has been set out for me. That simple. If God says leave it alone, I leave it alone. If God says don't bother with it, I don't bother with it. Whatever it is, it's like God says, it's like, oh, immediate, done. I'm not fighting with life. That's insane. I want to flow. So I've learned the art of flowing downriver. And that is what manifestation is about. Manifestation is not just about believing with everything in you that what you said is going to happen is going to happen. It's not just about that. It's about having the patience and the discipline to wait for it in the face of obstacles and things that would, well, waiting for it, I'd say. I'm not going to say things that would indicate that it's not going to happen, because you definitely get indication that it's happening. You can see it. You start manifesting yourself out of the situation, and it's like you see less people following you. You see that people are afraid. You just start seeing everything, and you just start seeing how it's getting more and more tough for them. It was just like a whole bunch of stuff all at once. Hold on. Hold on. Oh. Okay. Where was I? So, hold on. I need to learn how to get rid of this chat. It's very distracting. And I don't like to be distracted when I'm on a thought. It's hard enough to keep up with something. Yeah. Anyway, being in a situation where you are not associating the results that you're gonna get, or the goal that you're trying to achieve, not associating that to what is going on around you. This is obviously very difficult when you're in a situation where you're being gang stalked. It is incredibly difficult for you to look past situations. It's People are trying to knock things out of your hands. Like even with me and my business, it's like they're trying to knock me out of business. They're trying to ruin relationships for me. They're trying to tarnish my reputation. They're trying to make it hard for me to even conduct business. All of this attack on my business, which is the primary thing that I have to do every day, then it's going to, you know, put my home into a situation, and it's just like, it has been nonstop. So I would say the second greatest lesson that I've had through going through gang stalking is definitely manifesting my way out of this situation in a chaotic state. And then when I learned to do that and I felt like I pulled myself energetically out of the situation, I got all the way here to realize to myself, like, that is actually what I wanted to do. Like, that is not what I wanted to do, sorry, but what I was meant to do. And it's like, it just puts me in a situation because that is the skill that I'm going to need to move forward, to rebuild. Now, there's a chart and I haven't done it. It's the seven, what's it called? The 7 stages of healing, I believe. And one of the stages is rebuilding. And so once you get out of this situation, the bulk of it, not saying that there's not going to be remnants of things here and there, but when you get out of the bulk of this situation, you're going to realize just how much damage these people did. Whether it is to very significant relationships, whether it's to your reputation. Unfortunately, for some people, a lot of people, it's their credit. For a lot of people, it's you know, financial things like houses that they've lost, like businesses that they've lost, like all kinds of things have happened. You have to rebuild yourself. That is going to be, and in my situation, I'm being gang stalked, or was being gang stalked by the cartel. And so with a situation like that, that is physically dangerous as well, you definitely don't want to be living the same way as you used to live before. You want to take more precautions. You want to be more, because they want you to be a drug mule. So it's like, even after they put you in a situation of rebuilding, and I've seen this example with someone else, they were so determined for this person to join that they are still trying to give her opportunities for work and put her in a situation where they take her business from her. Like, she went through, I talked to this girl that went through, literally, like, in my city, everything that I went through. And she found herself, you know, back in their clutches. And that is because she did not have the kind of help and advice that I had with what I was going through. Most people are going to be susceptible to this one way or the other. And I just never had to be susceptible to it. So, you know, that I just realized that this is something that I had to do. This is something that I had to master, and this is a way that I had to learn how to live. The third really important lesson that I had to learn was patience. My God, I would not have expected this thing to have lasted like a year, much less 2. We're on the 2nd year. So there's been significant changes and significant progress. Number one, I'm not being crowded out on the streets the way that I used to, first of all, because I'm not out on the streets as often as I used to be. The second thing that I would go ahead and say is my devices are still hacked and tapped and whatever, but I kind of don't care. I've done as much with it as I care to do. So say, for example, like blocking, you know, my SIM card from being like listened into or whatever, turning off devices, blah, blah, blah. But as far as like it being hacked, it should be hacked because it's going to go to forensics at some point. Energetically, I've gotten people out of my energy, which is, oh my God, it's the best thing that has ever happened. I have gotten people out of my energy. The energetic attacks are no more. I cannot be accessed energetically. I am over the moon. I am beyond. It's been a long fight with that. That took 2 years. It was too long in my opinion, but you know, I had more lessons to learn, and every time I learned something new, I was like, okay, perfect. I had to stay in until I learned enough lessons to not repeat the cycle. So if there was another way that they could have gotten in, I had to go through every single way that they were getting in order to jump that hurdle. learn how to close that door or learn how to deal with that problem. And then it was like, okay, you've learned all your lessons. And that's why I always say in other videos, like, you need to learn all your lessons in order to move on from this fiasco. Like, you cannot leave anything on the table, or that one thing is how they're going to get back in. So there is that. Patience is a choice. Everything I'm talking about is a choice. It is a discipline, and it's something you do when your feet are like in lead blocks. You need to lift your feet while they are in lead blocks, and you need to try to move. This takes practice. This is not because you feel like it, for sure, and it's not because it's easy. So with patience, it's like a muscle. It's like the more patient you are, the easier it is to be patient, but you're still gonna fall into impatience every once in a while. It's not something you want to do. Nobody wants to be here being gang stalked. Nobody. So you realizing how long it takes. But you know, for me, I always put it into perspective, because I would prefer to be gang stalked for 2 years than for me to find myself in a situation where I'm in the cartel for life. 2 years is short, and it's good for me rather than being stuck for life. So whatever I have to do and whatever I have to know to get through it, then that's what I have to do. That's what I have to know. That's how I looked at it. It was not anything beyond that. You know what I came to realize from living life from this perspective, from not responding to problems in the same way that I did in the past. In the past, it was like this problem had to drag itself out. It had to hit you. You denied it. You fought with it. You grappled with it. How can this happen? You complain. You do all of this. You waste all your energy. And then you take the long route to learning the lesson. As opposed to me addressing issues and circumstances that come into my life where I'm like, okay, what skills do I need to address this? What do I need to do to fix this? Simple. I am now tackling my life as a course that needs to be navigated, as opposed to tackling my life as if I'm being punished. Major perspective change that has led to me experiencing worse issues now, or since being gang stalked, worst issues, but dealing with it in an easier way. Things just being easier to overcome, issues being easier to resolve. It is not that difficult for me anymore. You know, where I have to be fighting myself, fighting life, fighting the reality. Like, I gave up on fighting gang stalking. It was happening, and it was like, I'm gonna have to live with it. I'm gonna have to live around it. I can't be here stressing about when it's gonna end every day. I just gotta go with the flow and find the there's no way they're gonna do it for life. So there's no point in stressing about it. What else? Let me give another example. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. Living life in this way just put me in a situation where I realized, like, so while I was going through gang stalking, I was listening to a lot of tarot readers. I got into tarot very heavy, etc. And they would always, tarot addresses you by who you are destined to be and not who you are. So tarot calls you a king before you're a king. Tarot calls you wealthy before you're wealthy. Tarot addresses you by your energy, your destiny, your soul. So if you're watching tarot, tarot will call you, like I said, a king. You're a king. And then it'll call you, it might, you know, refer to you by attributes, but still, to get to the king phase, it takes a lot of time, or the queen phase, it takes a lot of time and jumping over a lot of issues in your life successfully, learning a lot of lessons. So if it's calling you, say, a King of Pentacles, you had to pass your Fool stage. You had to pass, you know, your Five of Pentacles. You had to pass the Page. You had to pass the Knight in order to get to the King. So you've mastered that part of your life. And it'll identify you as kind of like what you're meant to be. So, you know, it used to say things like a healer, a tarot reader, a this, a that. And it's like, you're not any of that yet. But what it does is It's like the universe appoints you to a position and then trains you on the job, trains you for the position on the job, which is just as trying as it sounds. I was talking about in my community center section that it identified me very early on as somebody who would spiritually defeat, you know, so, like a practitioner. And I was like, what? Me? Like, there was, I don't know. It just makes you realize, like, if you're going to be on a course where you're going to be, it's all about learning lessons, and it's a video game where you need to learn all these lessons to advance to the other one, then why not making learning the lessons a little bit, like, a lot more easier on yourself? That's all it came down to for me, just making it easier on myself to get through it, just making it easier on myself to say, I'm gonna put in the effort to actually, like, take this seriously up front, figure out what I need to do, follow the steps, and then get through it. I advise anybody, you know, everything that I'm saying that I've learned, hopefully people can take that sort of attitude and apply it, because this whole game is all about attitude. It is all about how you're approaching it energetically and how you're approaching it intellectually, even with, you know, the energy in your body, all of that. Like, it's about attitude. It's about controlling yourself, controlling your vibration, controlling your mood, controlling your efforts, deciding where you want to put your efforts, deciding what you want to give your attention to, even though gang stalking fights so hard for your attention. It really is about, like, deciding what you're going to pay attention to and what you're not. And by the way, being physically followed outside is one of the first things that you have to not pay attention to. You have to just walk through it. Walk through it. As long as they're not running after you, tapping on your elbow, just walk through it. Ignore people. People can hover and whatever, and they do that to me. They do that to me, like, all the time sometimes, and I could care less. Like, what am I going to do? As long as they're not bothering you. I was thinking about how tarot calls you by I want to say it calls you by your correct name. I like to call things by the correct name so I know how to treat it. I know how to handle it. If you know, I'll go through that later, but so I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about, I guess, like, my path to self-discovery. And only going to talk about it just to tell a story. So, you know, traditionally, I've always felt like people are draining. Like, not, and I explain this from the perspective of just being someone who is just very energetically sensitive. That's what I mean. So it doesn't matter if I have a good time with the person. It doesn't matter if I like them. It doesn't, like, just the act of having to be around people too much, it could be different people every day, was just always something that would just make me feel uncomfortable. I always felt like I was processing way too much information for something that they're calling a good time. So it's like, do you want to go to a birthday party? Do you want to this? Do you want to that? And I'm in this situation, I'm receiving too much, like, stimuli. So I'm supposed to be having a good time here. I'm supposed to be relaxed. So wouldn't work. And always when I would be out in public, I felt like, now I look different than I did back then. Like, I looked more like, what do I call it? Like a more trendy girl, if you will. Like, I went shopping all the time, blah, 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 whatever. And I always felt like every time I go in public, people are staring at me. People are paying me a lot of attention a lot of the times. And I'm really just expressing, like, my life experience and what I've gone through. I don't want anyone to take my life experience personally or as a personal statement about themselves. Like, please try to understand what I'm saying. I would always feel like like I would attract a lot of attention, or people were trying to analyze me or study me, and it made me more reclusive because it's like, I don't constantly want to be perceived. So it just brought me to a point where I guess I was trying to understand, like, what is it about me that makes people behave the way that they behave? Because it is the same set of behaviors every time, not by everyone, different behaviors for different people, but it is a set of behaviors that makes people exhausting. They're either jealous or they're super clingy. They're jealous while being super clingy because they want to be around you to spew toxicity into your environment and talk down on you. It's like, I know a lot of girls have gone through this, or not just even girls, like men as well, where it's like, you just constantly have to watch out for people. Like, you just never know when they're gonna start. I just never know when they're gonna start with their nonsense, and then it's just like, oh my god, exhausting, 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 energy draining, not interested. I have to leave now. Like, that is where I've been. And so over time I got to figure, like, you know what, I think I'm just peculiar to people. I think I'm just not what they expect, especially being like a woman of color. I know people expect something else, they get something else, and they don't know how to process it. It's almost like they malfunction a little bit because they're like, this is not what I expected, and actually it's overwhelming my belief systems. So there have been a number of reasons, I guess, but I remember I had this one friend. He had a very good actually, we speak the same way. We speak the same way. Very good vocabulary. I love talking to him. We would love like dissecting the way like we communicated. We'd steal each other's words. Very smart, very gifted, very intelligent. And I remember one time I was I was out with him, and he mentioned, he's like, everywhere we go people stare at you. And I'm like, you noticed it? I'm like, great, because this is how I have to live. Like, this is awkward, it's uncomfortable. And he was like, they're probably thinking, what an exquisite flower. And they're probably just like mesmerized. That's what he said. And I was like, you know what? I like that. I like that definition. I like that meaning, because that explanation is a lot more, it's a lot more desirable to think than if it were something bad. And so for me, I'm already at a phase in life where I'm choosing my vibration. I'm choosing how I want to feel and what I want to think. At a certain point, it doesn't matter if it's the truth or not. It doesn't matter if it's the truth or not. The last person staring at me definitely probably doesn't speak that way to say, what an exquisite flower. But that was good enough for me. I was good enough to accept it. And it made it easier to be out in public and around people, because every time they would stare, I'd be like, of course you should, because I'm an exquisite flower. Like, let me tell you the significance of the exquisite flower thing. I'm a very soft-spoken person normally, in my natural habitat, in my natural way of being. I'm very gentle, I'm very loving, I'm very perceptive. I don't push people to do anything. I respect boundaries, I respect privacy. I'm very peaceful. So I'm a delicate, feminine woman. I'm very feminine. I can have masculine traits as well. I'm very persistent with business. I'm very protective of myself and very effective at it as well. I'm very good at driving home points that people don't want to accept, you know, etc., etc., etc. The tarot deck describes these queens, people who have mastered these areas of their life. There's the Queen of Pentacles, which is a more masculine sign. It's a woman who's very good with money, who's hardworking, who takes risks and chances financially, and she wins. There is the Queen of Swords, who I am slowly exiting that energy myself. She is very defensive. She is a fighter. She gets things done. She's not easily manipulated or pushed around. And people have to respect her. They have to treat her well, or else the sword, and the sword is always drawn. On that card, I'm gonna find that card. On that card, she actually doesn't put the sword down at all. She just, it's always up and it's always in her hand. It's a very draining way to be, but once you get into the energy and you know, you've been there for a while, it's like second nature. It doesn't take that much to do that. Then there's a Queen of Cups, who is a very loving, nurturing, mothering energy. And which one am I? Then there's a Queen of Wands, who is a master manifester. She's a person who can just make things happen in her life and make things happen for her. She's magical, I think. Oh, and she's also very social. She's also like the life of the party, they say, etc., etc. Just a person who has good social graces, a woman who like would entertain and everybody likes her and she's very popular, etc., etc. You've mastered your relationships essentially. You've mastered your environment, I would say, as an extension to your relationships. But anyway, I can't even find this card. Anyway, I was all of them, but predominantly I'm always in that loving, very calm, very magnetic energy. I'm very maternal, I'm very loving, I'm very genuine. I'm always for the right thing to happen. So it's like people are very comfortable in my energy. And so that's how I see myself. I think that's how a lot of people see me as well. And it's like, that's why I would liken that to a flower. And I know that I'm not a very common person. Like I don't really fit into a lot of like statistics or demographics, if any at all. Not demographics. I fit into demographics, but I'm not statistically anything. Like, if you say one thing about me, it doesn't statistically match like what other people who are in that situation live like, or are like, or behave like, or have been able to get out of. Or gang stalking is no different. Most people get caught in a situation. I got out. I can't stay. It has been not fun, and good day. You know, that's my energy. I can't find the card. The card's not even that important, but I just like the visual aid. Anyway, so when he said I was an exquisite flower, I was like, perfect. That is actually how I do think of myself. But you know, the significance of that is that the way you see yourself is how you address yourself, and it's how you treat yourself. So because I see myself, and if you think about the attributes of an exquisite flower, so there are plants that they just won't let grow outside in nature. It is too rare. So oftentimes people with a lot of money pay a lot of money for these plants. Like those cheap plants you see at the supermarket, those are regular plants. There are plants you're going to pay like $5,000, $10,000 for. They're very expensive. This is the Queen of Swords. She is a warrior princess. She fights. She's a fighter. I am a fighter. I'm a fighter. I'm a very successful fighter with a very clean record. I don't let problems beat me down. I just don't. I don't. It's not my thing. I don't think anybody should. So that is how I live my life. But attributes of an exquisite flower would be, and I'm going somewhere with this. Attributes of an exquisite flower are obviously very valuable. It's not so much how much you pay for it. It's just that people who have those kind of flowers in their house, they're not going to plant it in a garden or outside. It's going to be inside of the house. They're going to put some very expensive lights on it because you can't afford for it to die. You have to already have a green thumb. You're a seasoned gardener, because you don't just spend, let's say it's $2,500 on a flower. You're waiting for the one day of the year it's going to bloom for 3 days and then it's going to die or whatever. It is rare. Everything about it that makes it different is not necessarily desirable. Like there are plants that smell like, you know, passing gas, or like just the smell it's not a pleasant smell. They are still rare. That doesn't change the fact that they're rare. It has nothing to do with, like, you'll see plants where it's like, it looks like a mouth is like clamping down and closing. So as soon as a bug like gets on it, it closes. Not a pretty flower, but very exotic. People want those plants in their house. They want to say that they have something like that. It's very fascinating. It's very different. That is what I felt when he said the whole exquisite flower thing. Had nothing to do with being the prettiest, had nothing to do with being anything, but just something that should be like respected, appreciated, admired, adored. That would take a lot of effort. And then I treat myself like that. I'm not a person who is easy to get to know. It's not easy to get to know me. It's not easy to get into my space. It's not easy to, nothing about the initial act of getting to know me is quick or easy. And that is because there are boundaries all over the place. And they all need to be, all of them, every last one, without exception, needs to be respected in order to get to that point. And then when you do get to that point, you're like, it was very worth it. This was a worthy experience. This is heaven on earth. I want to stay here. I want to be here forever. How comes this person's alone? Like, because of the boundaries. So that's how I saw myself, and or still see myself. That's how I see myself. That's how I treat myself. I treat myself with a lot of love. I treat myself with a lot of self-respect. And respect is very huge to me. I will not remain where I'm not respected. You have one time to disrespect me. That's not something I'm going to teach you. You either have it or you don't. And if you don't, then you got to go. Simple, easy, fast, efficient. Somebody who is already disrespecting you on the upfront, it is only downhill. You are meeting their representative. If the representative is a sloppy drunk, you are dealing with something you don't want to know. The representative should at least be polished, because I know that I'm going to get into something and I have to be realistic later on. But not upfront, not right now. I just met you and you're already toxic. No, I cannot go there. So, best of luck. That's how I treat myself. And I think that because of the energy that I don't expend with people, that I don't care to have in my life, it has given the impression that I have low boundaries. Because it's like somebody says something and I choose not to engage that by responding or by arguing with them, then it's like, oh, well, we can keep doing this and we'll get away with it. And I had to learn during this process, like, if you want to get out of this, you have to address things with people up front. You got to be very cold about it, and it doesn't matter how they take it. It's about you. You have to value yourself. A lot of the reasons I didn't get into a lot of toxic relationships, having toxic friends, and having a lot of leeches in my energy and around me, because they wanted to gang stalk me and come around me and create a community around me where it would be so dense that I would have to literally cut off everybody at once to get out of it. So me being isolated is something that is a part of getting out of it either way. The way that they want to like bundle you around with people who have direct attachments inside of you, signed paperwork, signed leases, partnerships, always something that's connecting you so deeply. So I got to the point where it was like, I never got too deep into it because I just don't make spitfire decisions on important things. I think they're crazy for the things that they even ask. And I'm like, they're obviously asking because it works. And it's crazy that people live like that, where people, their boundaries are so low and they let everybody in. And it's like the way these people behave is they gaslight in one way, they insult in one way, and then they expect access to you. No, you're exhausting. No, the first time you cross the line, no, goodbye. Treat me like you would want to be treated. Simple. Respect is very hard for people who don't understand boundaries, because understanding a boundary is the first sign of respect. It means that you respect my choices. It means that you know your place. So people not understanding boundaries, and no gang stalkers do, like, I had to remove someone from here, and it was like, they'll just come in your chat section and just do any kind of thing. No, be respectful when you come here. Don't come here to be a distraction, or don't come at all. It's not about engagement. It's about me having a decent experience when I come up here, because I'm doing this for people. So it's like you have to like constantly set examples, and how as long as it takes is as long as it takes. But describing myself like that was me putting into practice where I say I call myself by, the beginning of wisdom is calling things by the correct name. And even if I don't have it yet, even if I'm not there yet, even if I definitely wasn't back then where I am today, who I am today, I was still an exquisite flower, because that was my destiny to be. So that's how I see myself. I treat myself. Nobody has to validate to me that I'm special. Nobody has to validate to me that, and I don't even care to ask. I just move in that presence. I move in that energy around in the world. So it's like when you encounter me, you should feel like you've been in the presence of an exquisite flower. You should. And if you know that you are and you behave in such a way and you get cut off, then you're not surprised by it, because you know that you were not worthy to be in that space. this is something that I want to impress to people, is like, you have to call yourself by whatever name you want to be known as. If you, whatever you look at yourself as is how you treat yourself. You're being gaslit, you're being betrayed, you're having people say things about you that's beating down on your psyche, on your mind. You need to call yourself who you want to be. And then you need to behave that way. And then that sort of thing continues to happen in your life experience. You experience life as that. That's all. It's like you make the decision first, and then the actions follow. Then you feel that way. Decision, you start feeling it for yourself without validation, without questioning it, just knowing that you want it that bad that it has to be, okay, this is what I'm doing and it's happening. I'm doing it. So you feel it, you feel that it's done, you feel that it's doable, you feel that it's gonna happen 100%, and now it's a matter of time. And in the meantime, you're not looking to fit some type of criteria that would justify or validate it in the reality, because again, you are already that in your emotions and in your mind. You're already that to yourself. You don't need anything in the world to say that you are that. You don't need any proof of it. As you walk through the world, that is what believing and knowing something is. And as you walk through the world as that person, people treat you like that because that is how that person would behave. People recognize you by your energy, not your shoes, not your car, not your house, not your watch. They recognize your energy. We know who we are not going to do certain things with, and we know who we can get away with it. We know by a person's energy how strong their boundaries are. If I do this, I'm never going to get access again. So I better think twice about if this is something that I enjoy having, because I'm not going to get a second chance. No amount of begging, no amount of pleading, no amount of gang stalking can make this person change their mind, because they respect themselves. You have to look at your life like that. It is just not worthy. It's not worth living it if you have to live it in a way that makes you uncomfortable. It's not worth. And if it's not worth living it this way, and you're definitely not going to take yourself out, then you just have to change it, and you accept absolutely nothing but what you've asked for. That's it. I don't settle for less than I deserve. I asked for what I asked for, and that is what I want. I worked for this type of life. I've lived this type of way. I enjoy it. I'm going to go back to that, irregardless of what lunatics are running around me. That is the end of that story. Simple and plain. Nobody is going to subject me to the kind of abuse that maybe they've been comfortable with doing to other people. That's why I come on here and sometimes I'm very aggressive. Sometimes people need to see that side of you in order to understand how serious it is. So everybody leaves you alone. Everybody stops messing with you. That is how it's supposed to be. So when you look at yourself in the mirror, you have to ask yourself, what do I want to be? Where do I want to eventually land? You know, in my head, sometimes I think I'm like, when you were younger and you thought about what you wanted to be when you get older, was it gang stalking? Like, was that what you had in mind? That's crazy. That's how I look at gang stalkers. I'm like, can you imagine finding yourself here and sitting down one day to eat and you're like, this is not how I saw it working out for me. That's the kind of stuff that I couldn't live with. And that's why I was like, I don't care. I'm not doing it. I'm never finding myself down that dark alley. I would rather be on my face and rebuild and build it my way. I did it once. I could do it again. I know how to do it. I'm going to do it faster. That's how I felt. So for me, I just felt to myself that regardless of what people were saying about me, regardless of what the evidence was indicating, regardless of, you know, what I was seeing in my environment, what I was feeling, I just knew that gang stalking was going to end. I just knew that I was going to get out of it. Your attitude is a huge part of it. And please have more respect for yourself than to accept some of the behaviors that you've gotten accustomed to accepting. Some of the things that people have said passing their place in that way, you got to put them back in their place. Firmly, swiftly, and consistently without wasting too much energy. If it takes energy to even respond, don't respond. A lot of times I don't respond. A lot of the times I just act. I'm not going to warn people of what's going to happen. I'm just going to do it consistently all the time. And that's all it boils down to. So man, woman, or child, because they do gang stalk kids that are like 18 or younger, they do, that are on their own, that are at a disadvantage, that don't have family there for them, they do. They take advantage of these kids, or traffic them or otherwise. You know, being in situations like that, you have to look at yourself and just, you have to tell yourself where you want to land. If you see yourself as a king, if you see yourself as a, you know, I'm not going to say a god, but if you see whatever you see yourself as, you know, I consider myself a goddess. I do. So, you know, that's personal and that doesn't need to be validated or believed by anyone. It's not the reason I'm saying it, but it's how I see myself. So therefore, I'm going to approach life differently. You're going to get to approach life in the way that you see yourself. That's what needs to change on a mental level, is how you see yourself. Then you're gonna go into the world every day after you are convinced of who and what you are. And you're gonna behave in that way, and you're not gonna not behave in that way. You're gonna accept behavior that you deem worthy of your station, and then you're gonna reject behavior that you can clearly see that the person exhibiting that behavior does not have respect for your station. And then that's it. Hard and clear. And you know what, it's taken me a long time to actually be able to speak like this, to speak well about myself, because people have always tried to like beat that out of me or be annoyed when I say something nice about myself. And somebody's insecurity has nothing to do with me. There's a difference between an overinflated ego and self-love. So people should be okay with saying nice things about themselves. You know, there's some ridiculous quote like self-praise is like something something. I self-praise all the time because nobody else is going to do it. And I don't want to rely on them to do it. If I rely on them to praise me, then I'm also going to be susceptible to their criticism of me. I self-praise all the time. I don't need anybody else to believe it. And I don't go around telling people, but it's okay to think of yourself in a, you know, have a lot of self-respect. It's healthy and it's okay. One point that I do want to bring up is gratitude and contentment in this time. It's like, first of all, things can always be worse. Don't tempt the universe. If you do not want to make a list of ways in which things that you are grateful for or appreciative for, you should make a list of ways it could be worse. And trust me, you will bounce out of it so quickly and you will love everything that you have. I have something that I always tell myself. It's like, don't wait to appreciate, you know, what you had when you have it. You know, if you have something, you got to appreciate it, you got to take care of it. You know, you got to not find yourself in a situation where you're like, oh my God, I lost the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I lost a blessing. You have to never find yourself there. So while you're there, what you're experiencing is not necessarily just not appreciating it, but it's being so used to having it and feeling so secure in having it that you think that you always will. And that is not the case. Life will take away from you blessings that you've received that you have not appreciated and valued. You would be lucky if you get a second chance, because usually the really good things, they're gone and they're gone forever. So, you know, I have faced times in my life where there was something that I could have appreciated and then I didn't, and I found myself in another situation. I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. I can't cope. And you know, there have been times, sometimes I've gone back, it's been available. The majority of times it's like, you know, those situations where there's high self-respect or there's a high valuation, if it's a product, thing, course, whatever, it's like, no, they don't make accommodations for anyone. It is what it is, you know, one and done, right? You got to appreciate your bread and butter stage. You're in a position of a situation of If you're coming out of this, you're in a situation of transition. If you've made up your mind that you're coming out of it and you can't quite yet see, you know, the examples of it in your real world, you're still in a situation of transition. You still are. And you have to see it that way. You have to appreciate the little that you have all the time. No matter how bad it is, life will teach you there's always a new bottom. The bottom cannot stop. You'll go from rock bottom on earth to the underworld. There's always somewhere to go. And then you get there and there's like 9 circles. So, you know, I just, this has been a huge thing for me, not allowing things that I've lost to give me a sense of who I am. I'm always used to having a lot. I'm used to doing well for myself. And I'm also in a state of transition as well. I've had a lot of changes happen in my material life, but I'm still very grateful for where I've landed. And regardless of where I've landed, I would have landed anywhere and been an exquisite flower anywhere, because that's just who I am. It doesn't change when my circumstances change. It's like saying someone was royalty and, you know, there was a war in their country and they were banished. They're still a queen. She will carry herself as a queen everywhere she goes, no matter if she's lost her throne or not. That's just it. And so I see material things as just like too insignificant to value myself based on material, like too small to value myself like that. I don't even value myself based on how many people love me, and that would be a better valuation to me than how much money I have. Money has, you know, the material things, they don't have a direct impact on your personality or who you are. Like, you can be a great person or a crappy person, or happy or completely miserable. The wealth needs to be disassociated from how you feel about yourself altogether. It is filling a different cup. It's not supposed to fill the self-value cup. That is a different cup. Being grateful attracts blessings. Being grateful attracts love. Being grateful attracts everything to you. When you can sit back and know, like, it's not just about things like always can be worse, but it's just about the fact that you got to appreciate where you are. And I think if you're in this gang stalking thing, you're getting good information, you're putting it to use, you have hope for the future, you're acting as if you're going to get out of it already, you're already planning, you're already putting things into place, you're already manifesting, you're doing all of the things that you're supposed to do, then, you know, doing all of that without gratitude for the fact that you're capable of doing that, without being grateful for the fact that you're alive, that you're healthy, that you still find a meal to put on the table every day, etc., etc. Like, you really have to look at your situation and know, like, I would look at other situations that were worse than mine and be grateful. And I hate to say it, one day I was on Instagram and I was watching this video about the way bombs were being dropped over Palestine, and it was a very real video on someone's cell phone. They were all sitting there, and there were kids and there were babies, and it was like a bomb would just drop and like everywhere would shake, and they had no reaction. They were desensitized to being bombed. And it's like buildings were going down. It was just the most chaotic thing I've ever seen. And while it started happening, they started praying. So, you know, they started like singing the prayer. And the kids weren't crying and nobody was flinching. But to me, what I felt was like the guy who was singing the prayers was the one who was scared. And then a couple people joined in as well. And I just had this feeling in my stomach, like, they are living like this every day. Every day. This is their reality. And I sat while being gang stalked and I was like, it's still better than that being your reality. And we're in situations where we are gang stalked and the people in our lives don't believe us, the people around us don't believe us, and at least there is an excuse, because the whole world knows that they're being bombed. And where is the help? Where are the planes that are going to airlift the children out of there? Where is the humanity? People know and they're still not doing anything. The world knows and it's still not doing anything. Crazy. When I see Palestinians come in people's comment sections no matter what's going on in the world, I interpret it as, hi, you're talking about whatever nonsense, but do you know people are dying right now? Do you have some humanity? Can we talk about this? And I respect it so much that they are so devoted to each other, that they're so patriotic, that they know that they're on the other side, and that they should keep reminding people that something's happening. In my city, they are protesting, and I love that for them. I love it for them, and they should keep doing that, and they should keep reminding the world to have some dignity and to have some class. And so it's just to say that we are all going through something. Some of us worse than others, and I know you think your situation is bad. But do you want to be sitting in Palestine bad? Like right now, we put those two pots in front of you and we say, you're going to continue to be gang stalked, or do you want to go to Palestine? Life expectancy 5 days. I'm pretty sure you'd take your gang stalking back. That's how appreciation works. That's how gratitude works. Every day you can sit down and have your bread and butter and no bombs are going off. As a father, as a mother, as a parent, to sit there and know, like, my kids are not going to college. They're not going to get a peaceful life. We don't know if we're going to wake up tomorrow. We don't know if we're going to make it to the next hour. How do people make plans? How do people say, meet me here? Like, it's like, what if I'm alive? So you have to experience where you have to just appreciate where you are. God rescues you, and you're not going to expect to be rescued in a palace right away. There is a walk that you have to take. There is a walk that you have to take to get there. Doesn't bread and butter sound amazing right now? You can toast it. You can watch the butter melt. You can sit down in a quiet corner. You can get on your phone. You can watch funny videos. You can have a job. Hopefully you do. You have a bed to sleep in and doors that lock. And you're not sleeping somewhere where the building is wide open and it's missing a wall because a bomb went through it, you know. And we've seen these videos online of people like going through rubbles in certain countries. So I'm using that as one example. There are multiple examples. My chief gang stalker is being hunted down by the cartel right now. When I tap into that energy, I gotta tap out. I don't do it voluntarily, it just happens. And the kind of anxiety with knowing that people are looking for you. Let me give one example. There was someone in my city. I saw this thing on this public page, this blog on social media, and they said that they found a 15-year-old child murdered in a dumpster. And you know when there's gang stalkers in the comment section, because they were like, every time someone was like, what happened for a 15-year-old to be dead in a dumpster, they said there was always someone in the comments responding like, oh, maybe he was just sleeping for the night and then he died, and it was like ridiculous explanations that made no sense, but they were trying to silence people as the news came out. And excuse me, for me, I just kind of look at it like, look, there are people who took a lot of money to do something that is just not going to get done. There are a lot of people who took money to do something that is not going to get done. And who knows what they did with it? Who knows how they expended it? And they're in a world of problems. So would you prefer to be gang stalked or on the run like that from an enemy that cannot be escaped? And I'm not going to say can't be escaped, but you really got to be, God has to be with you. I've said that, and I know people do not believe in that. The odds were against me, all of them, every last one. And God will take you out when God is ready to take you out. There is no such thing as you're going to stay in something that God said you're not supposed to be in. If you have to be airlifted out, when God says it's done, it's going to be done. But if you're not on the right side of karma, you're not on the right side of life, it's like, it could always be worse. It can always be worse. It can always be worse. So take whatever you're going through, take the hardships, find endurance, find patience. You're gonna reach your breaking point, and that's when you're gonna have to pray for strength. You're gonna have to pray for faith. You're gonna have to pray for hope. You're gonna have to pray for safety. You're gonna have to pray for all kinds of things. God listens. God hears every thought. God plans your life carefully. There are things that I said when I was younger and they happened now, and I took that as an indication that God listened, God heard. So you just have to keep going. You have to keep praying. You have to keep finding motivation. Motivation can be anything from like videos like what I'm doing right now, all the way to like, there's some mornings or some days that it's just like, it's going to be gospel music for me. It's going to be like relaxing music. It's going to be peaceful sounds like this. It's going to be meditation. Whatever it takes to get through the situation is what you need to do. You need to continue calming yourself down. You need to continue taking control of your mind, of everything it thinks. We think that you control it. It is just a part of you. It's not you. You control it. It's like a tool that you use, but it's not you. You are a soul. Your soul, you got a body. Part of the body was the mind. Part of the body was the heart, the emotional center. You are not these emotions that you're feeling. You get to control these things as well. You have to master all of it to master yourself. You got to master your mood. You got to master how you respond to things. You got to master how you interpret things. And if you don't like the name that it has, if it makes you uncomfortable, you give it a new name so you can treat it a new way. Therefore, it responds to you in the new way. I used to be scared of this. I was like, I don't want to be scared of it. As a matter of fact, I want it to be scared of me. Simple. You're like, but it's not that simple. Saying it is simple. Feeling it will take a little work. When you're used to feeling the things that you say, and it's a psychological thing, just by repeating something and calling it a certain thing, this is how people devalue you. They're not going to come and say, Your Royal Highness. They're going to come and say, oh, that girl, to diminish it, to cast doubt. It's just the name alone changes how it is. So when I was dealing with these people, I just was like, I have no fear of them. I don't care. They can't do anything to me. They're supposed to be afraid of me. That was one of the first things that I heard in one of the readings. It said, don't be afraid of people who should be afraid of you. That was one of the things where I was like, they should be afraid of me. I could put you in jail for a long time. No, I think I'm not going to be afraid of you, as a matter of fact. That's all it was. These people don't have guns. I mean, they may be working for people that do, but the threat is not immediate. And what are they going to do? I've made too many reports. I've put too many people's names in reports. There's so much going on, and it's my personal situation. I've documented, I've talked about, but there's a lot going on. But yeah, it is what it is. You got to talk to yourself in the way that, you want to address yourself, in the way that you want to feel, and you have to not associate that with where you're at right now. Where you're at right now is a pit stop. It is a place of transition. You're getting there. When you start making something, it's not complete. It's a mess before it's made beautiful. And creation in anything in life is the same way. Creating yourself, because that's what you're doing. You're creating yourself now. Your old self died and you're creating this new one. You get to pick whatever it's going to be. So you got to be the best version of yourself, because you just went through a death. It's horrible. I got to the end of this. I'm not completely at the end. There are still critical things that need to happen. However, I'll say this. I went through that birthing process. I'm still in the process of healing. I'm still in the process of refining myself. The healing is taking a long time, but I can't expect it to be so immediate because I was gang stalked for 2 years. So I have to take my time. But I'm discovering new parts of myself. I'm discovering that I don't need to know anything, because I can always learn new things. I can always teach myself new things. I can always build upon the things, the lessons that I have, the skills that I have. I don't need like a one-size-fits-all approach for everything. I have one objective, and that is peace, happiness, abundance, and security for myself. And I can achieve that, and I have to go about applying different approaches to different things. Some things require me being a lot more stern, some things require me just reacting very quickly, some things I can take my time, etc. Like, you know, just knowing, I can take a different approach with different things that have happened. And I don't know if I would call it self-discovery or really crafting myself, but either way, it is a journey. I take it as a journey. I know a lot more what it's about now, what, my future holds, which helps. It helps to know. But I feel like I'm stepping into my purpose in life. I feel like just this morning I got up and I was done with my routine. I was done meditating, and I took these like meditation beads off and I put them away, and I was like, who am I? I would never be this person. Like, it took all of this happening to believe in myself and believe in this process enough to turn into the person I am today. Very confident to tell people about my spiritual beliefs because I think there's nothing wrong with them. I know I'm a good person, etc. Like, it has taken this whole process just to get back here, to be the person that I am now. And it would have been a lot more difficult had I not been gang stalked to be this level of spiritual. So, and confident and strong, Positivity is your light. It's very tempting to engage in I am victim, and I've been victim on camera too. I'm going through it. Another thing, please don't put spiritual people on some type of ladder or like pedestal, because it's like people are doing their best with what they can, how they can right now. People are doing their best. You're attacked a lot. You're put under a lot of pressure. People like experiment with attacking me. That's how much I'm attacked. So, I have to keep my positivity about me. I think it's one of the sweetest qualities that I have. I love when I live in a state of positivity. I love when I'm feeling love for other people. I do not like to be this aggressive side of me. So it's something that I have to take slow and I have to heal, and you guys get to see me heal, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's I don't want to come here fully healed and then you don't see how messy that process is, because it's very messy and it takes time. And that concludes my life for the most part, everything that I had to say. And it really boils down to the card that I initially talked about: no mud, no lotus. It takes a lot to get you to this point of being the lotus. And the lotus doesn't start as a lotus, it starts underwater in mud. That's where the seed grows, in mud, in murky water, in filth. And then it breaks its way through up, and then it becomes the lotus. And then it's this beautiful thing that exists in this filth. And that is your journey. That is the journey of self-discovery. That is the journey of mastering yourself. So instead of saying I'm in mud, you have to call yourself a lotus, or like I do, an exquisite flower. I have these two cards that came up when I was pulling cards for myself today, and I just want to like read them because I felt like it was significant to what I have to talk about. The first one is, these are frequency cards, and I guess they kind of talk about like vibration. This is the frequency of emergence. Emergence is breaking out, emerging, coming forth. The frequency of emergence invites us to approach our reality with a childlike attitude of innocence and wonderment, and to watch and celebrate the beauty that unfolds from that place. Basically, you are in a chaotic place right now, but if you take on a childlike attitude and you look at it like in a fascinating manner, all of us can tap into our inner child, not take it personally, not look at it from a state of reality. That's another thing. Leave reality alone. Reality is the past. In the sky, you already have everything that you've prayed for. You're waiting for it to get here, which means what you're living now is in the past, because the present time up there, you already have it. So if you're in your state of breaking out, you're not in danger. Nothing's going to happen to you, and you're going to get exactly what it is that you asked for. But all you can do is look around and learn yourself, learn how to master yourself, learn things about yourself, see the new parts of yourself, etc., etc., etc. Change. The frequency of change supports our ability to gracefully dance with the forever changing nature of reality, both inward and outward, so that we can appreciate the sweet release of the old and the birth of the new. Not that there's not going to be old turning into new, it's just that as things turn from old to new, you got to be able to like hang back and appreciate it. Appreciate the lessons, appreciate how it looks, how it feels, because you're going to be here again and you're going to have to do this again. So you can just release things and not like hold on too tight. Release worry, release shame, release guilt, release beating up on yourself. Like things have to happen. They just have to happen. Like some things have to happen. And the only thing is that you just don't know what it, like why. And it's always for your best interest. With Abraham Hicks, that I gave to follow or to watch all the time, she talks about everything is always working. What is it? Everything is always working. Not everything is working in my favor. Everything is always working out for me. And she repeats it so much. Everything is always working out for me. That's how I see it. It's really important that you see it so that you make the journey of going through life easy. It's not that it's going to work out for you regardless. You're going to find yourself where you need to be regardless, but the journey of getting there is going to be painful if you don't approach it with happiness like a child. And what are children if not unrealistic? Kids don't care about, can we go to Disney? How? And then you start listing all the ways you're like, I have to go to work. I didn't plan on spending this money, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, but can we go? And the more they ask, the closer you are to making the decision to go, because you're like, you know what? Why? These aren't really obstacles. These are excuses. It's the same thing. I think anything that anybody does in life, you know, it's not that they're not people who are first, but it's like some people, yes, are the first to do something. But even the first people to do something didn't even have an example and they believed that they could. I think a lot of things you're not the first to do. You just probably don't know somebody else that did it. And a lot of failures, people do not publicize their failures. These kind of organizations, like the one that's had an issue with me, they're not going to publicize people that get away. They don't want it publicized that I come on here and I speak this way. I'm giving people hope. Too much hope. So they want to bury my channel. They want to bury my engagement. They want to do all of that. But the reality is people get away. People get away. There are people that there's people the US government cannot find. Come on. There are people the US government can't find. This is not a sophisticated thing. That's how I see it. And besides, if I want to, then it is. That's how I approach the world. That's how I approach everything. It just happens because I want it to happen. And that's it. That's what happens when you decide to be the magic in your life. So thank you for anybody who stuck with me for the 2 hours. You know, I just want to mention once more, no mud, no lotus. Thank you all and have a great day.